All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's Danielle with Inkworthy Books, and I am here with the lovely Renee Simpson, who I had the pleasure of working on this wonderful, beautiful, touching, so raw and vulnerable book, I Want to Go Home, Reclaiming Power After Sexual Assault. And Renee has been so present out in the world talking about her book since she published it that I've been so impressed with your effort and the heart you've put into this. And I thought it would be just about darn time that we sat down and chatted, because it was a few months ago that you published this, right?
Yeah, International Women's Day.
Okay.
The release date.
Okay, perfect. Well, why don't you, if you wouldn't mind, my dear, tell me a little bit about what your book is about so we can level set there with the viewers, and then we'll continue the chat.
Sure. Yes, so the book's called I Want to Go Home, Reclaiming Power After Sexual Assault. And it's a true story about an experience that I had in my early 20s where I, took off on this amazing gap year and, followed the festivals and traveled and had this amazing time. And then I ended up living in this marina and was offered this amazing trip to sail a boat from Gibraltar to Phuket. And I had no experience, but I just thought it sounded amazing and fun and scary. And I thought, why not? I was ready to go home. You'll find out why, I guess, when you read the book. But yeah, I was ready to go home in so many ways. So I jumped on this boat. Anything that could go wrong went wrong. We had pirates. We, starved for a few days. There was an amazing romance that I had on the boat. There was a skipper that hated my guts. And we sailed through a Category 5 cyclone. So it was crazy. And it was the most frightening thing I've ever done, completely out of my comfort zone. But because of all of these like huge challenges that I was faced with every day, I really couldn't run away from something that I was trying to run away from, that I was trying to bury. And, almost this adventure at sea almost became a reflection of what was actually going on inside of me, the chaos that was happening inside of me in my head, and trying to contain this experience that happened to me before I went on my gap year. And the truth of that was I was raped a week before I left on my gap year by my best friend's boyfriend. So so it's really about what goes on inside our minds, that mental state, what happens emotionally, what happens spiritually, physically to our bodies as we are trying to process a sexual assault experience, and all that stuff, all the inner stuff that happens before we even find the courage to start speaking about our story and or reporting, or whatever it is for you that you choose to do to start your healing journey. And for me, that first step was getting to a point where I could tell my family.
Yeah. And I really loved when we first started working together, you were like, I need to tell this story about this amazing boat journey I went on. And I'm like, okay, great. And then all of my feedback was like, hey, Renee, what else is going on here? Like, where's the story here? And I was like, there's something under the surface. And it was almost as if you knew exactly what you needed to say, and you just needed to feel like okay to say it, just like you're saying to your readers, like, it's okay to talk about this, and no one had given you permission before, or something to that effect. It was like you were holding back for some reason. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, like the whole process working with you was so enlightening and inspiring. And you're absolutely right. You gave me permission to sort of be myself and to tell the truth. And it's so interesting. I really believe in the synchronicities in life. And I do believe that our books aren't ready to be born until we're at a certain place in our lives, because I've been working on this book for 10 years and I just don't think I was ready to tell the truth of this story. And I think you helped me get to the heart of me, but my purpose as well. And so it's interesting because everything that I do with my work in my career is all around like counseling and helping people. And I work with like young people in schools, and I'm all about resilience, and I'm a huge feminist, and about women's rights. And so it was interesting working with you, because I had this aha moment where you were sort of saying, Renee, you keep skipping over your trauma here like it's nothing. I'll never forget what you said where you said that. And you said you're playing down something that is very serious. And I think you need to be talking about this. And I think this is your story. And I sort of went, oh my God, yes. And it's exactly like, this is why I'm doing what I do in my career.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I'm a feminist. And this is why I'm all about women's rights, and and why I have a core value around safety and trust and respect. And so it really was sort of you highlighting that, saying, hey, this is actually your story, why aren't you talking about this more? And then I realized, oh my goodness, this is what I've been waiting for. This is the moment. This is exactly the book I was born to write. And this is exactly the conversations I need to be having. And I have the courage to talk about it. I'm at a place in my life where I feel ready and I'm comfortable. I know myself. Why not? Let's go. Let's jump in. So I'm so grateful for you. This book I wouldn't have got there, I don't think, unless I had to be working with you. No one else. It had to be you.
Well, I'm so honored to hear that. But, it's so interesting you say that, because I firmly believe that everyone has a story to tell, but it's not always ready, right? And you worked on this for 10 years before I was ready to be born. But I don't blame you. This is a hard story to tell. It's hard trauma like that. You have to kind of deal with and move on. And I think the way it happened for you, how you wrote this book and finally reached this moment of like, yes, I am ready. This is the story. I am feeling safe and brave and courageous enough to tell my story, is really the message that you have for your readers, is that it's okay to talk about this. You're trying to encourage them to do that. And what I've loved about watching this journey for you is that you're out there talking about this now. It's not a pleasant conversation, but you're not mincing words. You're like, hey, this is happening and we need to have a voice, and we need, you need to stand up and feel okay talking about it. So I just thought that was such a beautiful full circle about you wanting to help others in this way and finding a source of help for yourself in the same way. I just thought it was so beautiful. So thank you so much for letting me walk on this journey with you. It's just been such a pleasure. But I was hoping that we could spend a little bit of time talking about publication. So tell me, you decided to self-publish through Amazon, right? How did you come to that decision? What do you think motivated you to go that route?
Like with it being a 10-year journey, I looked into trying to find an agent, for example, trying to be published with a publishing house. And I discovered vanity publishers and things like this. And I just found that both those routes, I don't think I believed in myself enough to really push. I tried to push tried to get published with a publishing house, but I found, I don't know, it just felt too difficult. It didn't feel right for me. I knew a lot about that. You would pretty much, they give you a chunk of money and then pretty much they would own your book, and you would still have to go out there and promote your book, and but you're still only getting paid royalties. And then they have a lot more control over, they could read your book and say, well, we want you to change this, we want you to change that. And so you don't have any control really over like your creative expression. I think, if you want it to be a certain way, it can get lost by someone else trying to control that. And if you know what my book's about, it's about reclaiming power after sexual assault. And it's all about like sort of gaining our own sense of control, our own empowerment. So almost to go down that route was kind of like disempowering in itself. Yeah. So I decided that wasn't for me. And then I spoke with someone who was in the vanity publishing world, and that just seemed ridiculous because they wanted like $15,000 or something to publish my book, and it literally is exactly what I've done.
Mm.
It's just to have someone, design your book cover, to help you format your book, to pretty much what we did, working together. It's almost like coaching. But I feel like you don't know who your coach is going to be either in that world. I've been put with someone who just proofread my book once, and the person was horrendous. Like, it literally, I have to be honest, it broke my spirit for a year. I didn't come back to the project for a year. I just thought, I'm not good enough. I've got my book, just because he pretty much wrote, it's a full rewrite, and just crushed me. So I just thought, oh, well, this is a piece of shit, no one wants to read this. And then, and then I think when I sort of decided, no, I think it was, there was a lot of talk around, well, me and my partner had broken up too. And so I sort of went, okay, no, I need to get back into this project that's going to really help me process and maybe avoid feelings around the relationship. So I dived back into it, and that's when I just decided to get very, very serious and decided I wanted to self-publish, and then I wanted a book coach to keep me accountable. And I was just so lucky that I found someone who believed in what I was writing and the story that was here, because I think, I was very, very, very anxious about, being told it was a load of shit again, So thank you so much for that, because I remember the first time, the first editorial response that you gave me, and when we spoke, you were so kind, and you just highlighted all the positives of my story and what you believed it could be, and you just believed in me. And I remember just crying my eyes out, like getting off the phone and just crying with relief, like, thank you, God, that this beautiful piece of creative, I think, and this experience hasn't been lost, or it hasn't been wasted. Or can you think of how many people out there that might have had a similar experience that may have just given up and been like, oh, well, it's not good enough, and didn't try again?
Yeah. And in fact, I just saw, it's so interesting you say that, because I just saw a post in a group the other day where someone was like, oh my gosh, I just got this feedback from my editor, and they just ripped me to shreds, and they didn't even tell me one good thing about it. And she's like, should I ask for positive feedback? I'm like, I can't think of a project where I didn't tell them something that they were doing right, that worked. I mean, I've never seen a project that was like 100% garbage. But the fact that you can't find one thing to say, like, you know what, you have a lot of work to do, but you can do it. It's going to get there. Or, hey, let's shift, or whatever. It's something positive, because how many people have given up along the way? And that's really heartbreaking, to think that we have all those stories sitting on shelves that'll never be told, because someone didn't believe in them. So
that's right. And I really think it's about working with someone that has the same values as you. And I think that really showed from our first talk that we really were aligned. We just hit it off really well. You believed in, about our stories need to be shared, and you had the same message as me. And then I felt like with this particular person who proofread my book, there was a lot of judgment in the criticisms, because I remember one of the comments was, is this a Sex and the City? Is this the Sex and the City sort of story? And I just felt like there was a lot of judgment. And I'm like, what if it is? What if it is a bit of a sexy story where women talk about their sexual experiences or whatever? What if it is? Like, what's wrong with that? And so I remember just thinking, this guy is not the right person for me to be working with anyway. But I do have a good a sort of silver lining on that experience.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear it.
After a year of sort of going, the self-doubt, just, shelving the book for that period of time, I remember thinking, no, that's not fair. Like, how I was treated was actually not right. Yeah. And so I ended up contacting the vanity publisher that actually put me in touch with this particular proofreader. And I sent her a message and just was really honest about, hey, this was my experience working with this particular this person. And I felt very judged and criticized. And I was so hurt by the responses that he gave that I actually didn't pick the project up for a year. I haven't written for a year. And I don't think that's right. What I would like is a full refund. And so she refunded the full amount of money that I paid for that.
Wow.
I think it might have been like $500 or something. Yep.
Yeah.
And he didn't do a full proofread either. It was like, I think you sort of do your first 20 pages, I think.
Okay.
And you sort of get a feel if you want to work with them or not.
Okay.
But I just thought that was really kind, for her to go, and she wrote something really nice back to me and just said, I don't think any writers should feel like that. We do need to be careful with our words because they can be so hurtful.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry that you had that experience and you felt like you couldn't write again, for that 12 months. So in kind, I'm happy to refund your money. So I think my message is there is don't be afraid to just have a conversation and say, no, I'm not really happy with this experience. And
right. And you used your voice. I mean, which is the ultimate message of your book. It's just speak up and own your truth. And it's okay if other people are uncomfortable or, because if you were, hurt and put in that place where you felt crushed, I mean, it's not necessarily synonymous to a sexual assault experience, but at the same time, both really required you to step into your power and say something.
Yes, and say this isn't okay. That's right.
Yeah. So your whole journey is about that, which is amazing because you exercise that daily. I see a lot. I follow you on Instagram, and I think we're friends on Facebook as well, where you post some things about what I really loved from you that I wanted to call out. I think I've talked about this in my group too, is you put together this list of books to help the survivors of sexual assault. Is that how you phrase it? Survivors of sexual assault?
Yeah, survivors.
Okay. Yep. I just want to make sure that I'm using the right terminology.
Yep.
Yeah. And I love that you included your book, which of course it needs to be on the list, but you were like, hey, if you're struggling to process and find help and hope through this, these are some books that can help. And you just came from a very loving, giving place. And I thought it was such an amazing way to give to your readers and to promote your book at the same time, because book promotion can feel real salesy and sleazy, hey, read my book. Hey, read my book. But you found ways to talk about it and to really bring it to light in such beautiful context, meaning, it's from the heart of support and from this kind of bigger mission place of this is something, you do for your work, you help people, and this is kind of who you are and what you're about. And this really fits so nicely in there. So I just wanted to ask you, do you have, I mean, maybe I'm putting you on the spot with this one a little bit, even though I promised I wouldn't, but did you plan all this out, or are you just kind of feeling into what feels right for you? How are you going about talking about your book and promoting it?
Yeah, it's quite intuitive, the process, because you're right. It did feel a bit annoying, always posting hey, here's my book. Have you read my book yet? Right. Why haven't you read my book?
Yeah. And we shy away from that, right? Especially as women, we don't want to be pesky and annoying.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you look into book promotion and book marketing, and there's so many different strategies out there. And I looked at there's so many, and it can be really overwhelming, the to-do list. So I just sort of sat with, hang on a minute, what am I trying to achieve here? Yeah. Okay. I want to help people overcome their sexual assault experiences. I want them to find healing in whatever that looks like for them, because that's what I do. I love self-care. I'm so into wellness and anything to do with self-care. I just love exploring and treating that sort of I guess it's almost like an adventure in itself. You get out there and you're exploring different modalities and see what works for you. I'll try yoga, get out of my comfort zone. Oh yeah, I love yoga. Okay, great. I might try different types of yoga and see what they feel like. And okay, Bikram hot yoga is too much for me, but then I really love yin yoga, and that's nice and soft and gentle. Or you might like to try sound healing. I know a lot of people think I'm a weirdo for trying, going to different sound healing, but there's so many different types as well. And I think it's fun. It's just different. You could be into massage, you could be into going to women's circles to share and look for that sort of support. you know, it could be dance for you. Like, yeah. So anything that I think inspires that journey is really what I'm about. So I thought, and I looked at sort of what do I share? What do people like enjoy following me for? And it's like I share a lot about things like that. Oh, hey, I tried this. Oh, hey, I tried that. Or this is how I'm taking care of myself this week. And I tried this new modality, and this is what's working for me. And, or this is what I didn't like. And I thought that's really the core of this. So how can I do more of that? And so now I'm sort of opening up more. So it's kind of like putting a mission behind your social media. So now, you know, like any business. So now it's like I try to be real in terms of my triggers as well around sexual assault, because obviously I think through writing the book I've become way more aware of, you know, how things when I have these big emotional like reactions or whatever, like where they're actually coming from. And I know all of them are literally coming from these experiences now. And so I'm quite comfortable talking about everyday experiences and how those triggers affect me. So for example, buying a car was like a really scary thing for me. And, you know, because it's about trust, you know, it's about feeling like, is this person going to take advantage of me? You know, so there's all these sorts of things that come up. And so, yeah, so that might be something I want to talk about, because I want to normalize, and I want other women to feel safe to you know, to sort of, hey, you know what, I feel like that too. I get like that as well. Oh shit, maybe that's related to my trauma as well. Okay. So it's really it's
bigger than just your book, you know.
It's bigger than my book. It's bigger than my book. And like I mentioned before, it just, I don't know, it just feels like I'm walking into these shoes that were always meant to fit me, you know. And it's like now I've sort of found my path. It feels very strong. I feel very purposeful, very like what I'm doing now is very meaningful. And I love having these conversations, you know. And I don't know. Yeah. So that's how I sort of stumbled into what I'm doing with social media, and I'm trying to be a resource.
Yeah, really led with your heart then, and what really felt right for you. And of course, promoting your book can feel a little awkward even within that. But when you come from a place of service and wanting to say like, hey, yes, you do have to trade a little, you know, couple dollars for this book, but it will bring you hope, and it will bring you something that can truly give back tenfold. But it's not just about talking about your book. It's, you know, expanding that, how, like you said, self-care, and how, you know, how under the auspices of me trying to talk about this particular topic, can I help people in other ways? So I really
love right. And it's also about stepping out of the I as well as survivors as well. So like that's the self-care stuff. And then going, how can we as survivors, or even just members of the public, create bigger change and have these conversations, even if you haven't had these experiences, to create safer communities and futures for, you know, future generations.
Right.
And so I'm really,
you know, women,
sort of going down that path.
Are willing to follow you and say like, we don't want anyone else, you know, having to deal with this. So let's make some changes. Yeah. So it's really about gathering the troops and community and support and love, and just spreading all of that within that realm.
Absolutely. And doing the research on my own, I'm finding myself really drawn to different books around, like, I don't know, you might have seen like toxic masculinity. How is that contributing to this story, you know, these experiences of sexual assault? What's happening for men? Like, why are these things happening? Why do men feel like they need to rape, you know? And there's a lot when you start peeling back all the layers of the onion. It's ultimately around like this lack of power that men feel. So how can we empower our men, you know, to feel safe, to feel powerful on their own without doing things like that, you know?
Beautiful.
So I'm on a mission. Definitely loving the research at the moment. And I'm trying to share that, and I'm trying to share that research in a way that with my audience that isn't so I don't know, like in sort of like a popular way, in like a way that's like palatable, I guess you could say, in a way that they might feel comfortable to share that information to with others. You know, I'm trying to make it relatable, you know, instead of like, you know, I read this paper on something and, people just go, what is she talking about? I've got to make it all sort of relate to this bigger mission.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, I love that. And I can definitely see in your presence out in the public, AKA social media, that you are really doing such great things to further that mission. And I applaud you. This is a journey of courage, and you certainly are wearing the badge of courage when you go out there and you are just like, hey, you know what? This happened to me. It can happen to other people, and we need to talk about it. And I just love how you're making it much bigger, a bigger thing than just, I wrote this book, I want you to read my book. So thank you so much, Renee. And, just one last question. If you had any advice for someone who is writing their book and wanting to, maybe feeling like they need a push or a nudge or something to get it out, what would you tell them?
Don't give up. It's a tough mountain to climb. I totally understand that. To write any book, no matter what it's about. In particular, with trauma memoirs, take really good care of yourself through the process. It's really important. I know, like, I was drinking a lot of wine when I was like writing mine. So take good care of yourself, and take breaks. Don't feel like you have to push it out. It's nice to have a deadline. It's really important, I think, to stay accountable to someone like, a book coach like Danielle, and have someone who's really supporting you on that journey. He's also like checking in. How are you? Which Danielle does really well. And someone that can also point out, your strengths, because you need that too. As much as we don't want to get caught up in our ego, you need someone saying, egging you on, being like, that cheer squad from the side. You need that, because you will have moments where you feel like, oh, this is so hard. I couldn't be bothered this week, so keep pushing. I think it was great when Danielle had a timeline for me that I could stick to, and everything was, we agreed on things together. So everything was like, Danielle would ask me, okay, so what's achievable here, like, for you? And when do you want to finish by? And like, so I made my own goals with her. We set those goals together, and then she would just keep me accountable as to how we're progressing through them. Mm-hmm. So I think, so just stay the course, and, you keep just chipping away at it. It's one step in front of the other, it's one task after the next. And it really is like climbing a mountain. And then, once you've finished and the book's out, there is definitely another mountain to climb with your book marketing, but that's okay. Same thing. It's one step in front of the other, and it's one task, and it's all trial and error. You try something, it might not work for you. You try something else, and just something will eventually click. But I think it's just about, it's endurance. It's an endurance game. And just totally backing yourself and believing in yourself. And if you can really hone in on what your mission is with your book, I think that's really what will keep you going. That's almost like what will nourish you, or nurtures you. And, and then it's not so much about you anymore either. It's something more. And it's also a legacy as well. I think that's really important as well. Like, your story, you're going to leave behind for future generations. So that is so important. Like, that really egged me on when I was pregnant, when I was finishing my book with Sophia, and it really spurred me on this legacy of, it doesn't matter what happens to me now, I'm going to leave this beautiful story for her. There's so much learning and teachings in this book for her. So if you can sort of think about that and think about who you're writing this for as well, I think is really key to keeping you going.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking with you, and such a pleasure helping you push this baby out. And I just love your book cover. It's beautiful, and you are just a beautiful soul doing good things out in the world. So thank you so much, Renee. Such a pleasure. And I will drop the link with my video so people can check out your book if they'd like to help spread the word. I've been talking about it. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Danielle. You're amazing. And yeah, to anyone listening, if you're looking for an amazing book writing coach, go with Danielle. I just had a great time working with her, and you'll feel $1 million
Thank
bucks
you.
along the
Appreciate
way.
you. Okay. You take care of yourself, my dear. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.